Hi, I'm Britta Jensen,
And I'm Alex Herrera.
and we're joining you from the Writing Consultancy to talk about formatting. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. And we're going to talk about formatting for submissions. And these submissions can be anything. They can be for a literary agent, critique group, editor.
It could be for your friends, for contest entries. We just want to mention the brief caveat that some contests and publications can have their own specific formatting requirements, so make sure to check those. Ours are just going to be more general for the rest of the submissions that you do.
Absolutely. And one of the important things to keep in mind is that this is informational. It's to help you not sweat it when you're submitting. So just a little bit about us. I am the head editor at the Writing Consultancy. I've been teaching writing and editing for the past 20 years. And my lovely associate, Alex.
Yep, I'm Alex Herrera, and I'm the associate editor here at the Writing Consultancy. I've been apprenticing and learning from Britta for several years now, and we are just loving this.
Absolutely. And we're so happy to talk to you because we noticed there's an uptick in people who don't know about formatting for submissions. And that's especially been more stark after the pandemic. And so we just want people to be able to know this information, which is why we're providing this workshop for free for anybody who wants to just really submit with a lot more confidence. So before we get started, if you want to learn how to actually improve your story and your characters and just really get into the details of getting close to your characters for your fiction, definitely check out our courses at thewritingconsultancy.com. So, Alex, why does formatting matter?
Oh man, Britta. So
It is the bane of our existence.
it really is. And the reason it is so important, I think, number one, is that it is really your first impression that you have on anybody that you send your work to. You've spent so much time crafting characters or storylines, etc. And it all boils down to when someone is opening up your work for the first time, they're going to have an initial reaction. Does this look chaotic and hard to read? And what is this? Or does it read like a professional manuscript that could easily be made into a book one day?
Absolutely. And that's the first time someone's seeing your work when you're submitting to someone like us or to a contest or various other places, even a critique group, even a friend that you want to read your work for the first time. All of these things really, really matter with formatting. They're very simple. We do not want to disparage you today. We want to emphasize that this really matters, but also that it often means the difference between your work being taken on and it being binned. So that's a UK term for your work being put into the bin or the trash bin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as editors, for sure, we definitely look at the formatting as that just kind of initial first impression, like, does this look like it's an amateur, or does this look like somebody that's really put in some work into their writing to transition to a professional writer?
Yeah, and that's what we do every day is we're helping writers transition from being amateurs to being professional authors. And so this is just part of that process and that education.
Yeah, just one of those little technical things that you just have to master.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So the first thing we're going to talk about are file types.
File types, yes.
So please remember that you want to submit in pretty much only one format. So don't submit in PDF unless a contest specifically asks for that. And literary agents most of the time have complained to me that they really don't like getting PDFs for a variety of reasons, although every person has their preference. Text files that are just like, we'll show you an example in a little bit, and definitely no screenshots. I know that might sound obvious,
But we've seen it.
we have many, many times. This past year was the first year that I saw people sending screenshots of their work, and I was like, you got to be joking. So hence us talking about this. No Google Docs. A lot of the proliferation of Google Docs means that people think that Microsoft Word is dead. It is not. Please don't submit a Google Doc. There's a variety of reasons for that we won't go into, but the industry standard really is Microsoft Word.
Absolutely. And I think just to really quickly blurb that for a second, Google Docs just has some limitations, and you'll find those the more that you go down the road of being in the literary industry.
Yeah. And last but not least,
We actually don't have the time to type up your handwritten work. We just
yeah,
don't.
we don't, we
And we
don't,
won't,
and we
even if we
won't.
did.
We are editors. We are not transcriptionists. There are people who make a living doing that. You can hire them to type up your handwritten book. However, if you are one of those people who just does not feel computer savvy, definitely take some classes. If your heart's dream is to become a best-selling author, you're really going to need to learn how to use a computer. And it's going to save you a lot of time and money having just the basic skills that you need to have. So I know some of you are probably watching this like, oh, why would someone do that? We wouldn't make this workshop if people hadn't.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned on the previous slide, Microsoft Word is definitely the industry standard.
Yes. You can also export a Microsoft Word file from Scrivener, but Scrivener is not an inherently collaborative document between editor and author. Also, it's an incredibly large file. I use Scrivener for my own writing, and so I'm always exporting sections or compiling the whole thing together, looking at the formatting before I send it.
We've actually had good luck with, I believe it's Libre,
Mhm.
which transfers really seamlessly to Microsoft Word. So if you have something against Microsoft Word, which you shouldn't, it works great.
Like,
This is
yeah,
another good option.
yeah, yeah. And so I have a client who is a computer programmer, and
Yeah.
he uses, I think it's Libre Writer or something to that effect. And he has found that like I send him the Microsoft Word file, he opens it up in, I think it's Libre Writer, it's good to go. And so, whatever you decide to open it up in, that's fine. But there are always, usually, except with this one program, the Libre Writer, there are always going to be page differences if you're not opening it in Microsoft Word. Even in Google Docs, there are discrepancies that we found.
Yeah, and that can get tricky when you're working with an editor or somebody that you want feedback from on your work. So just to kind of go a little further into why the setup does matter initially.
Yeah, yeah, especially because we're leaving comments in the margins most of the time.
Mhm.
And inevitably, when people don't have Microsoft Word, we just waste a lot of time talking about what program they're using instead of just talking about the actual work itself. And so if all of that is done and dusted, it just saves you a lot of time and it also saves you money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just like Britta mentioned earlier, when page numbers are off, it's really hard for an editor to reference a page number for you to go back and correct or review. So
Yeah.
you can imagine.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So we're going to show you some examples. But surprisingly, people will ask us recently about page sizes. And I will get books that are in this like tiny little page format. And I'm like, why is it in this format? The standard is either A4 or 8.5 by 11 if you're in the United States.
Just memorize it.
Just
That's all.
memorize it. Just memorize it. That's it. So we're going to stop the share for a second, and we're going to show you some examples of some of the things that we've been talking about. So the first thing we're going to show you is the most egregious other than a screenshot, and we can't share screenshots with you of other people's work because we're not allowed to. So we're screenshotting, or we're sharing examples from my work that is in the wrong format because I'm allowed to share my work with you. So we're just going to show you this beautiful thing that makes us cringe. We have at least 10 or more people a year who try to send their work in this format, and I'm ready to die.
And to be so honest, what this does is it takes whatever content you have that you've worked so hard on, and the people who open it up and see it and they're like, I'm not reading that. That's the initial feeling that most people will get if they see a document like this. And it's just, it doesn't give yourself the credit for all of the hard work that you've put in. To leave this little
Absolutely.
detail out.
Yes. No text files. That means .txt if you're not sure what that means. Please no. Please no. Please no. All right. Our next fun one that we're going to show is PDFs and why they are incredibly not fun to receive, particularly because we mostly do developmental and copy editing. And I can't really easily interact with a PDF like I can in Microsoft Word. Now, if I was doing a proofreading, assignment, that would be a little bit different, but I don't do a ton of proofreading. So
We would always request a PDF if we needed it.
yeah.
So, but if you're going in just without any specific formatting guidelines, you'll definitely want to steer clear of PDF.
So often I'm viewing this in the actual web browser, and I can't like leave margin comments. I can't just click here, go above, leave a comment. Instead, here I have to like hope that it's going to let me click on this. Adobe tends to be pretty slow sometimes on my computer when I'm trying to leave comments, or when I'm highlighting, it won't let me highlight exactly what I want to highlight. It is just, don't do it. Don't send me a PDF. I don't want to see it. I want to be able to interact, because normally I'm meeting with authors to talk to them about their work when they're trying to decide if they want to work with me or another author, excuse me, another editor. And I need to be able to like show you on the screen some of the preliminary comments that I left. I can't do that in a PDF.
Absolutely. And I promise I will not go too much into this, but I think one of the reasons that people tend to send PDFs is because they are wanting to protect their work from being copied or stolen, so that other writers or editors can't take it and claim it as their own. I promise you, we don't want to do that.
We don't have the
We don't have the time. It is so much work to take a book from its infancy to production and to claim it. It's not something that an editor or anyone is going to want to do. It's going to cost so much money, so much time.
And I'm going to get sued because it isn't my work. Like, you're going to find out.
Absolutely. So it's just not something that really warrants a lot of your worry or time. Send it in a Microsoft Word file.
Please, please. And if you are someone who's like really afraid of someone stealing your work in general, I think it just benefits you to just get really educated about that whole process, so that you're not feeling, you're making sure that you're approaching the editor author relationship from a non-adversarial position. Nothing makes us more angry than when someone comes to us and says, oh, I can't send you my whole manuscript because you could steal it. And we're like, seriously? We have better things to do. I already have things that I am actually publishing, and your new manuscript that has not been edited is not the thing I'm going to publish.
Absolutely. And we get it. People just don't know. A majority of people have never been in the literary industry before.
Yes, but it still annoys me. She's much nicer about it. I just like, I become incensed.
But now you know. So take that information and go forth and send your full manuscript. It's going to be okay.
Amen. Amen. So our next favorite friend.
Yes,
Is paragraphing.
Paragraphing. We learned about it in elementary school, middle school, high school. It's because it's important.
It really is.
It's just important.
And Alex wrote this amazing piece of text right here. Nothing is sure to deter a reader, especially an agent or editor, like a wall of text without paragraphs or indents. So you're not writing a blog. If you are, it's online. It's not being sent to us unless you have formatted it to now look like a book. So we're going to show you why this is annoying, and how you can make things look better. Oh, yes, it is right here. So we're actually going to cover spacing and the paragraphing at the same time.
Yes. And I think that this is something that intuitively as a reader, you probably can understand right away. If you see just a big page of text, words, it's so hard to get into that.
So here we have it. Now this is my writing, so it has paragraph breaks. But imagine that there is just a wall of text, that all of this, like this is the entire page, just this right here. It feels like this insuperable obstacle. And we're like, nope, not reading that. So sorry. So sorry.
You'll find that one's brain just turns off when there's not a beginning and an end and some spacing in between.
Yeah. And you can see here, like this, we can't tell who's speaking. Everything is mushed together. There's no indentations going on here. There's some here, but they're not really at a regular interval like they need to. And it's really easy to do this. Like you can see on this page, it does have those indentations, and it's just a lot easier to engage with. However, the thing to ask yourself is, what is wrong? What else is wrong with this particular page?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I'll say is that for an editor that's going to be interacting with your text, even though this one looks a little bit better, has some indents, it is still too close together for us to really get in there. We need more spacing in between all of those lines, 1.5 or 2.0.
Please, please, for the love of all that is good and holy, please. As you can tell, this really matters to me.
It is, yes, we are passionate about this.
Please, because this is not going to do. The other third problem with this is that it is an Arial font, and Arial font makes my eyes bleed. So please don't do this. We're going to show you some more fantastic examples of fonts that make our eyes bleed. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Oh my goodness.
You might be surprised.
You might be, but you might not be. This might have happened to you.
Yeah.
We call it death by Comic Sans. So luckily the person's spacing is great, but they've decided to use Comic Sans or my other least favorite, which is the typewriter font.
Yes.
New. And the other like difficult thing about Comic Sans and the typewriter font is that it actually is bigger. And so if you have booked in a package with an editor for writing coaching, for example, and I've had this happen with people that I work with who I love, they submit 50 pages in that font. I change it to Times New Roman, and suddenly the 50 pages is only 45 pages. So they've lost 5 pages of feedback from me that month because they didn't actually change the font.
Absolutely. It just is so important to go with the standard, the industry standard, so that you are making sure to get everything that you pay for. Absolutely.
Totally. And if you look here, Arial, no, it looks a little better than Comic Sans for sure, but still, it just makes my eyes hurt.
And I know that the reason I said this might be surprising is because I personally was a Comic Sans lover through my, middle school and elementary school career. So when I first came into the industry, I was a little surprised to find out that wasn't socially acceptable, but it's just not. It's not. I'm sorry to maybe make you cry today, but
it's okay. You are going to fix it and you're going to make it better. That is our motto. Fix it, make it better. So spacing, memorize this also. Very important. The main no-nos is no Comic Sans, no Arial, no typewriter or fancy fonts. They make our eyes bleed. And this is especially because we're looking at things mostly developmentally or line editing or copy editing, and having a really easy, boring, readable font that we're used to reading a lot, it means that we're not noticing the font, we're noticing your words, and we're not being distracted by the font choice.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, that's what you're paying for. And we want to make it as easy for an editor to, as easy as possible for an editor to really get to the meat of what you're trying to say.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you're like, what do I do? Boring old Times New Roman. It works every time. I do have a couple people who will send things in like Baskerville, and there's like one other, and I don't notice it because it looks like Times New Roman. I'm like, oh, what's this pretty font?
Times New Roman or anything super close to it.
Super close to it. But just be boring, Times New Roman. No fancy fonts needed. And I'm actually going to show you an example of, once we get into the bonus details, I'm going to show you 2 examples of formatting that are just standard things that you can kind of, take a look at, screenshot while you're watching. But like page numbers are like kind of the bonus details that are helpful. A really clean file that doesn't have any previous comments in the margins, unless you are at the point where you're at the proofread stage and I need to see what the copy editor wrote. Like that is definitely like later stage stuff where I'm like just checking that you incorporated things from the copy editor.
And that would be a specific request though.
Yeah, that would be specific request. Or an author asks me, hey, is it okay if I leave these comments in here because I want to make sure I resolved them, the author? I'm like, sure. You got to have your story's title. It just protects you copyright wise. Some people include their name in the top header, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And then 1 to 1.5 inch margins is another standard. Most Microsoft Word programs automatically build that in. So that's not as much of an issue anymore. Like it used to be in the old days, because I'm old. I'm 10 years older than Alex. So
no way. Don't believe it. And I was just going to say that these details here are the ones that they're not as critical as the ones we've mentioned previously with the spacing and the font,
Totally.
etc. But they really do help market your work into a professional's territory. So we're leaving that amateur behind and we're coming into professional territory where we've got all of these things ticked off.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
really like makes a good first impression.
It really does. And what I'll do is I'll make like a little style sheet for myself, just reminding me of the things to look for before I submit for anything that's really big, like contest or things of that nature. So I'm going to show you an example of some things that I've tried to put into the formatting that we've just talked about. So let's pull those puppies up. First, I'm going to start with a short story. And there we go. Just pull it over because I have a massive screen. There we go. So you can see the far view of this, because sometimes having that like really far view can allow you to see just like the big stuff. And that's what I'll often do is I'll pull my manuscript out really as wide as my screen will let me and look at it from a far view to be like, okay, is everything in the place it needs to be? And then I'll zoom in and really look at the details of, do I have my name and the title in the top? Often I'll actually put my email in there. In this case, this is right before it goes to proofreading if I didn't need it. Do I have my page numbers at the bottom? Do I have any blocks of text? If I have text messages, are they offset so it's clear that they're part of something different than just the character's thoughts? So you can just see that this comes across much more cleanly than the bad examples that we showed you.
Yeah, Britta, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that the most remarkable thing about this format job that you've done here is that it's unremarkable. It's like opening a book. And I think there's something to say for formatting your book your manuscript in such a way that an editor, an agent can see it as a book that much more easily. You're taking that extra step out. They're like, oh, this looks like a book already. So
absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And like, this is a book that's more in draft phase. And this is how I prepared it to get ready for agent submissions. So I'm just going to make it just a little bit bigger. So you can see I've got my name. I did not put my real email, but you're going to need to put your real email. I've got this cover page, and this is for when they say, hey, submit this many pages. When they do like a manuscript request. I've got my address, I've got my email, I've got my phone number on that front page. And then you can see that the chapter here, because the other one was a short story. This is an actual book that I've written. And so you can just see, I'm going to just scroll for a couple pages so you can just see what the formatting looks like there. The main thing to keep in mind is that there are always going to be little tiny exceptions for things. You just have to be consistent. Like every time someone sees this in this particular book, they know that this is Idris's thoughts or it's the thoughts of the other character. If we don't have text messaging in this particular world I've created, but if I did, I would indent it over this way and I would actually italicize it, but have it in the middle so that they know, oh, that's a text message. You don't have to italicize text messages. You can format it a different way. Some people bold it, some people all caps it. I don't like all caps. It looks like you're shouting. But you have to keep that consistency. And you also have to make sure that you keep the pagination of the page numbers really clear as well.
Yeah, and that allows the reader to not get lost within your manuscript for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this manuscript here, there's just nothing to distract. It's clean, it's plain, it's got all of the things that you hit for good formatting. And I think that's really the goal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the main thing is you just don't want us to be distracted. We want to pay attention to your story. And so just want to like focus on some of the bonus details here that you can see, but definitely go back and pause and look at some of the things we've put in the other slides, like Times New Roman, font choice, spacing, paragraphing, page size, file types. Like all of those things are really going to help you by just making a checklist for yourself. So thank you so much for watching.
Absolutely. So fun.
Yeah, it's so fun to be
Thank
here
you,
with
guys.
you. And if you'd like to work with us, you can go here to this link. We're also going to put it in the notes. And have a great day and keep writing, and don't sweat the small stuff. Just put it into a list for yourself and it's going to be fine. You can do it.
You got this.
Totally. Bye.
Bye-bye.